Good morning, everyone. It's September 25th. It is today, Wednesday, I think. Um, I wanted to, you have to forgive me. My adrenaline's going a little bit. I just had a TED Talk and been cooling down for about 10 minutes, but I still feel some energy going. Anyhow, it's just part of the process, right? So I wanted to start off, the videos with a prayer, and I can't really think of a cool one like Emma Catherine has, and I don't want to steal hers because it's just awesome. But I like the one that I do every morning and every evening that Mary Lou Lake put out there. Um, and but it's long, it's very long, and I was thinking, if I say a 5 or 8 minute prayer opening every time, I mean, yeah, it's an awesome prayer, but I could see a lot of people just zooming on through it to get to the meat and potatoes, and I thought, well, I don't want that to happen either. And then it dawned on me last night, why don't I just read a paragraph from each? And since I've done the morning prayer already, I'm going to do the evening prayer, and I'll just do this first paragraph so y'all can hear it and you can maybe go get it. I'll put the link on my in the show notes. I got it off Nathan Reynolds' website in the resources section. And I've been saying this every morning and every evening for, I think, almost 30 days now. I think it's on October 4th, I hit the 40th day. And I keep thinking, well, what am I going to say when I'm done with this? And nothing really compares. So I think I might do this prayer for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months. I don't know, but I just like it. So here's the evening prayer. Father, I declare that you are the Elohim of our evenings as well as our days. I stand upon Psalm 91:5. 6. Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, or the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. I plead the blood of Yeshua over my family. I come into agreement with the promises in your word that my family is blessed physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I ask you to put impenetrable shields around our property, with armies of your holy angels standing guard. I ask you to forgive the sins that have been done in the surrounding area, and I command the kingdom of darkness to clear our airways, grounds, and underneath in Yeshua's name. Father, I bind any demons from entering our property. And I want to add here, Father, I bind any demons from entering this broadcast. Well, it's not really broadcast, it's a recording, but no interference. I ask you to forgive the sins that have enabled astral travel, and I ask you to block that activity. I ask you to place hedges of protection around our family that humans cannot penetrate, either physically or through astral projection. I loose the power of the kingdom of Yeshua to break the power of satanic surveillance. Father, I ask you to send your holy angels to roadblock any attacks from the enemy. Father, because of your faithfulness, we can go to sleep with full assurance that you are watching over us through the night. We ask all of these things in the mighty name of Yeshua. It's a really awesome prayer. And then this one is a release from generational curses, release from soul ties. Those are anyone you've had sex with outside of your husband if you're married. Prayer for victims of trauma and fragmentation. This one I just is awesome. And it's very long and it takes you to the end of the night. So yeah, this takes about ten minutes to read at night, 8 or 10 minutes. I never really timed it. I timed the morning one and it's about 5 or 6 minutes, but I thought, I'll just do a paragraph each time and I want to mark where I leave off. So this is where I need to begin next time. So there is that. And I thought I would just dive into the journals. And so I left off, this is the next journal, April 10th of 24 this year. It was 5 minutes after session. And this was my first, not my first session with Jon Uhler. It is, I think it was the third or fourth one because The first two or three John recorded and then would send to me. He doesn't keep copies of them. And when I received them, there was no audio. So I decided to get my own Zoom account and do it myself and record them. So here I am and here they are. So, and you'll notice I have a little squiggle mark here. That's just a note to myself that I've entered it into my, obviously this is a Word document, but I take these and paste them into, I guess I should just show you my PowerPoint that I have for each of my parts. And I guess I'll go back to the one from April 10th. Oh, see, I didn't even really create this map until the 3rd of May. So I can't really, well, I'll show you this one. So this is like 3 weeks after the fact I figured out. I was trying to make a parts map, and I've shown you all these before. And it just started off with a map, but ultimately it evolved. I guess I'll go a month later. It dawned on me, why don't I put their journal entries in here? Or, well, the first thought was, why don't I make a bio page for them? So their name, when the part was born, the year, the location, their role in that moment, who was their boss, their allies, and their enemies in terms of parts inside. As a part, who is their enemy part? It was the perps. And at this point in time, I didn't know I had perp parts, people loyal to the cult. So, and I added her journal, or actually added her sketch, which y'all have seen, and still, this is not one with journal entries. So by this time, I hadn't even put the journal entries in here. It was still probably yet another month later. Let's see, maybe 2 weeks later. Um, and this map part kept evolving. And still, oh yeah, okay, so here, this was my mom part, pictures of my mom, and then I started cutting and pasting my journal entries and adding them into this PowerPoint. And the logic behind that was so that I could, the idea is to get to know your parts. So I thought, well, if I have all their, because in one journal entry, you could have 5 or 6 or 10 different parts talking. And I thought, well, I want to get to know just this one part, with their sketches and their story. And at this point, I hadn't put blues in yet because they were handwritten, but I was starting to do them on my phone. And then I could cut and paste and put them in here. So, and yeah, I was getting a lot of pages by this time, but, and this kept evolving and changing. So, I guess what I wanted you to know here was that the reason I did it this way is I kept having, okay, I've got this vibe of this part and this, story that goes with it and the feelings that go with it, but I didn't really have a visual image. And at first I went and looked through my photo albums because my mom had given me my baby pictures, and at one point I put them in here and I thought, well, that was okay, but it wasn't me. It was a part that my actual face as a child was, yeah, that was the one experiencing it and the one that all the people on the planet saw, but it was a different person inside. So I thought, I want to have something concrete to look at and give them an identity. And so I went into Google Images and I typed in, because she was drowned until she was almost dead and she had turned blue. Her name is Blue, was Blue. It's now Bonnie. But I wanted to give it a concrete image, so I would just put into Google Images whatever descriptor that part guided me to. And I would look through the 5 or 20 or sometimes 100 pictures and see if the part resonated with an image that it saw. And blue resonated with this picture. And I know it's a sweet, lovely, darling picture, but blue was blue. She was drowned. And anyway, she liked this picture, so we picked this picture. And in doing that, it made them more solid and more real in my mind's eye. And I could visualize them and start to distinguish them from each other. This is what blue looks like. And again, this ultimately changed. These are images of my mother for me as a teenager throughout her life. And this was just a couple years before she died. But I needed something concrete to look at and see in my mind's eye, and they made them so much more real. And here's the part that I at first called Lucifer. I thought I had Lucifer inside of me, to realize no, it's a part that believes it's Lucifer because it was told that, and we chose a new name for him, Lance. So it first started off as this guy right here, this devil guy, Lucifer, and then ultimately we changed him and took his horns off and gave him angel wings to represent his anger and his rage at everything. And here's another part. It doesn't even have to be, real, Tasmania, scratchy. He's the one that would scratch and tear himself apart. And this is the part called sick. This was the sick baby after Blue was drowned and made to sit out in a cave and shivering, and it broke her immune system down. She was only 3 weeks old, and she switched into a different part called sick. And this part stayed with me throughout my whole life. She just lays around recovering from abuse and sickness. And then there was my dad, or I'd punch him in the face. I don't know, look at him too long, and his picture changed again. And like this one doesn't even have an image. This was me as a baby at this age, there I am, little cuteness. But at this point in time, my father, as he would change my diapers or hold me, he would, do things with his hands, and I'll just leave it at that. And then the next form of abuse is my father would pinch and poke and prod me and start conditioning me with these little pins. And I was only 4 weeks old. So again, the image doesn't have to be of an actual face and a body, but a picture that that part resonates with. And she felt that touch equaled pain. So, and I'm sure many of you can, and this is a part, my sister, who this part changed as well, to a completely different image. It's not her anymore. I had to differentiate between, and this is my other sister, I had to differentiate between the actual human being that I interacted with and the part inside of me that embodied or copied or mimicked that real person's behavior. So, they'll say to you, oh, you have your mother's voice in your ear, or your sister's voice in your ear. Like for me, whenever I come on camera, I'm always conscious of what I look like and what I'm wearing. And yeah, I've got the same dress, but 20 different versions of it. Well, I'm comfortable in it and they make me happy. So I don't care, but in my mind, I hear my sister, this sister, who's very conscious of her appearance. She's always well put together. I hear her in my ear saying, "You wearing the same thing again 2 days in a row?" And I'm like, yeah, because I don't care what you think about me anymore, but I still hear it in my ear. That's why I take her a picture off the air. But Blue is my first split. And I'm so grateful to God that He showed her to me as early on as He did. Because I think because she was, a -10 in intensity, so very, very, very deeply repressed, a wounded kid. If y'all are familiar with Jon Uhler's chart, which let me bring that up. IFS. IFS stands for Internal Family Systems, which was put together by, oh, Now I can't think of their names, but anyway, Jon Uhler went through this chart on Emma's program, and Blue was way down here, a wounded child. She wanted to get help. And so she stormed the gates and came up and showed me her memories early on. And because of that, it created a ripple effect. And because she became co-conscious with me early on, these other parts in this area, because as John explained, the parts below know the parts above. It's the ones from the top do not and are not aware of what's below. But the ones underneath are very aware of everything above them. And so Blue was here. She was a wounded child that wanted to get help. And so she stormed the gates, and it created tremors and cracks and fissures as she moved through. And as she became co-conscious, she was no longer present down here. And these other parts, because they're all aware of each other, even though they're compartmentalized, they know that there's a presence there. And now all of a sudden that presence was absent. And they're like, well, how did she get to escape? We're still down here in our prison. Where is she? What happened? I mean, they know she's up here and co-conscious with me. And we talk and she sketches and tells me her stories. But it created a hope and an excitement in them. And because Blue is up there, I think in other parts in this level started popping their head up, and parts in here start. And it's more and more absences from these layers of consciousness. As there was more and more parts now absent, the remaining parts hanging around were like, well, I want to get the heck out of here too. Will she listen to me? Will she talk to me? I want to come there. And imagine, you've got one part starts the process, and then the second one comes, and the third, and the fourth, and maybe there's one from here. And, there's all these empty spaces. And what I found was left as more and more and more of them, all the ones that wanted help. And even though they weren't sure if they wanted help, they were just too scared to get it. They're now brave enough to come get help from me and from John, that the ones that were left were the guardians, the gatekeepers, the ones loyal to the cult, obedient, submissive, trauma bonded. They were most of the last parts to reveal themselves were the ones loyal to the cult or stuck in their MK Ultra programming. And so as they were the only ones left down here, I'm not saying that was 100%, but it's a general rule. As I look back and think about it, I didn't really track it that way, but as I'm explaining it now, I'm understanding it. As there were all these absences, and the only ones left were the cult members. And then as I started addressing the cult members and the trauma bonded ones and the guardians and the gatekeepers and the self-harmers and the whatever, those started popping their head up to see how I would treat them. And as they could trust me, and as I listened to them, and they trust me more, and as I worked on TED and released my rage, they then became co-conscious. And as more and more of the cult loyal parts were jumping ship, so to speak, and hanging out with the rest of the parts, and so I don't want to be loyal to the cult anymore. I want to be loyal to Diana and Jesus. It shifted the thinking of the other ones down there. Because as I say, all these guys down here know what's going on up here. It's just us guys up here that are not aware of what's down there. So, and I'll put a link to John's talk on that so y'all can watch that. Yeah, they're lengthy, but they're worth your while. So I need to do the prayer, put a link for that, and then John's first and second talk. He's only at the first talk, he'll discuss this layer and how it relates to the whole. The second talk, he goes into the subconscious. And as you're there, you can link to more of Emma's shows, and he goes into the. Actually, he hasn't gotten to this level yet. Um, but I believe that's coming up in the next, I don't know, maybe 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. He'll be back on Emma's show, and he's going to address this layer, and then another show to do this layer. So, but that's been my experience. Is that very first part. And like I said, I'm thankful to God that it was my first split. Not the first one that revealed themselves, but I'd say one of the first 10 or 15, and I've got 182 now, discovered one more last week. As they start moving and coming up, it's like an earthquake, and it creates fissures and cracks, and all of a sudden the things that were kind of set in cement are no longer in solid cement. They're in cracked up cement. And they're like, well, if this guy got to leave, I want to leave and I want to leave too. And how can I? And what did you do? And what do you think? Do you feel safe up there? And yeah, I know that this guy's gonna stop me, but how'd you squeak your way through? And the parts do talk to each other. My parts do. And I encouraged them to. And part of that process was working with these maps. As I say, I wish it wouldn't do this. When I look at it myself, I can't see these lines. They all had very solid dark lines around them, but at a certain point in time, as you can see, I made the lines not solid. They were still there, they were still borders and boundaries, but they had dashes and open spaces. So each one is in a cage, but that cage is within another boundary area, because like parts stayed together. And so I gave them color. I don't really understand the color aspect yet. I'm sure it has something to do with the mind files, but I never really kind of dug into it. It's kind of intuitive. I thought, well, these guys are fearful. Well, these guys were the sex parts, so I'll make them red, and these were fearful, so they'll be orange, and these guys were, drugging themselves into stupor, so they're pretty calm, and these guys were tortured, so they had a shade of orange. And so that was kind of my logic. And as I opened up the solid line and made them perforated and said, well, okay, the walls are no longer solid. You can walk out or stay in, whatever you want, just know that it's open now. And so they started mingling around and talking with each other. These lines were just lines of communication, who talked with who within their boundaries. But I think because I did that I don't think I know, because I did it on paper with like an intuitive sense and them kind of guiding me, it opened the doors for them to chit chat with each other. And therefore, going back to this, I hope I didn't close it out. Going back to this, they were like, well, Blue got to leave, and Sarah took off, and there's all these absences now. I don't want to be down here trapped in a cage anymore. And it made them first aware that it was possible, and second, if they're not a cult member, desirous to join Blue up here and be loved by me and by my husband and by Jon and watching Emma's videos with me and learning with me. And because now they're co-conscious, they're, hanging out with these guys, and me up here. And as more and more absences, and like I said, it left the cult loyal parts, the trauma bonded parts, and then I addressed those issues, then those guys started popping their heads up. And yeah, at first I was nervous about having them up there, thinking they were going to contaminate the others with their cult loyal stuff. But I addressed that, and I believe I talked about it in a TED Talk. I don't believe, I know I did. And so as you see those, you'll understand how I shifted their thinking on that. And as more and more of those came up, Then the MK Ultra parts started coming up. And it's a cascade of events and it can move very quickly. It's what, September 25th, and I started my journal, the first journal, October of 2023. It's been 1 year, just about, and I've discovered 182 parts. And we are, I want to say we're all co-conscious. I'm aware of all of them. I think they hang out here now in the suppressed area. And when something comes up, like I'll have a song going through my head, and I just did a TED talk on that. So I'll know they're telling me something, so I need to go work on TED so that they can release whatever frustrations and anger and rage they have, and then they can become more co-conscious with me. But they're not hanging out down here, repressed and pushed down and hidden and whatever. So I just wanted to go through that. I didn't think I was going to go into all that today. So we'll get into the journal. So 5 minutes after my third or fourth session with John, said, so Blue introduced herself. When she was 3 weeks old, I was almost drowned in a tub of blood. So baptism to Satan. When I was pulled out of it, someone said, she's blue. I recall my breath going out of me into bubbles in the blood. My eyes were open. I saw them, the bubbles going through the blood. Then after a bit, I was raised up and out of it. I was cold in the air and shivering. I was blue, and literally her name. John says blue is the core or the first split. And I also want to interject here too. When I was doing this sketch before I had met John, I thought she was 3 months old. But as I'm sitting here talking to John, I forget exactly what he was saying. He was, like, hello, whatever. I think, and she revealed, no, I was 3 weeks old. So anyway, that's why I was recording this after session. I wanted to remember those details, as well as, the recording. John says blue is the core or the first split, which had never crossed my mind. I had no idea. And I said, I feel blue jumping up and down with happiness. She's being acknowledged. So I'm really excited to be doing so well with all of this. My parts are showing up left, right, and center. They all want to be known at once because that earthquake, they all wanted to follow blue. I think the timeline on the butcher paper will be cool to do. It appeals to my need to see it all chronologically. All in order will be nice. Because I didn't know what age, I had, like I said, there was these nebulous, images or beings in my mind. And so I gave them these concrete images off of Google Images. Um, but the next step John had me do is make a timeline. And I had, I'm 60 years old, so I got a piece of butcher paper. It was, I think, 4 feet wide. And, I lined it out, and that evolved into because I had so many parts and I couldn't keep track of it. And sometimes I realized, well, you're not 3 months old, you're 3 weeks old, and I thought you were 10, but you're actually 5. The butcher paper was just turning into a big old mess, and so I went into, I'll show you this, Excel, because I had done these things from a previous job. I learned Excel, not the graphs, but I had learned how to use Excel. And I thought, well, let's create a graph in Excel. I knew how to sort data and put it in here. And I'll tell you, it probably took me 6 or 8 hours combating some saboteur parts who kept making me forget things, lose things, anyway, to get things right. I finally succeeded, but here's the ages of my parts. You'll see where it says 0 over here. It's because I wasn't even 1 year old yet. This many parts created at 1 year old. And here's the impact: -1 and -10, +1, +10. I did have a few positive experiences. And it evolved over time. John and I were talking. He's like, well, why don't we insert where there was satanic influence and where I felt the presence of God with me. This was Blue as she was being drowned. God gave her the fight the will to live. There was spirit. My part spirit was born, the spirit of God inside of me. And that's still her name, Spirit. She's the Spirit of God. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. And so I placed an image of Jesus here. Over here was when I used to have nightmares, which is this part here. Susan, her original name was Scream, because she would scream in the middle. Is that right? No, I think that's the teenage part. Um, yeah, anyway, Dream was born. Dream, God would come and comfort me in my dreams, when I was 5, because I was having such horrible experiences. I saw Satan in that ceremony in that cave with Blue. I saw demons in the air. I sketched it. Here with BB, that was that creepy guy in the Masonic Lodge that was having me practice that energy magic. He was a demon. You know, uh, Sarah. Oh yeah, this was another ritual with where Jesus came and entered my body and scared the witches away. Well, I saw the demons inside of. I was supposed to take in a demon, and Jesus prevented it. So, and I wish I could. Let's see if I can move this so you could see that clearer. But then a couple of months after the fact, after John and I thought, oh, we should put these images in there so we can show where there was, the demonic influence, the God influence. And then I was like, well, John suggested, well, why don't we do an overlay of where there's SRA and MK Ultra? So SRA reflected in red, and then I did MK Ultra reflected in green, and then well, this was a domestic violence, so I put it in gray. And the training camp, I think this is kind of a palish green because it was kind of militaristic. And so I could just see how things played out. And as I did this, and as parts revealed themselves and I could put them on the map and look at them, I could realize, oh, that's why that part had that impression or thought or feeling or intuition, because it had already experienced it. It may not have understood it here, but by the time we got here, we got it. We understood it. And the context will fill in for you. So that was the value of graphing out your timeline. And yeah, you can do it on paper. But for me, this just gave it more depth and breadth. And yeah, it was quite the learning curve figuring out the graphs. But and just as an aside here, I have created blank forms. And John's going to put them on his website if this thing's going to open up, where you can come in here and all you have to do is enter. Here's the blank one. Come on now. Why is this grind? There we go. I give you instructions, and then you come over here and you just type in. Oh no, this is the wrong form. Sorry. It's number 2. I need to say, okay, timeline and parts lives. Oh no, that's another instruction. Impact graph. I forget my own titles. So you get the instructions, and all you have to do, if watch the graph here, and I'll type in the name Jane Doe, Bobby. It'll fill it in for you, and you can change the impact -2, -5. So I made this easy to use, and it's going to be freely available to anyone who wants it. And you're certainly welcome to email me, and I'll just send it to you through WeTransfer, or if it's small enough, just as a detachment on an email. So this was really impactful for me. Let me get out of here without saving it, because these are for you guys, the blank ones. But again, the PowerPoint was huge in the ability to visualize them and make them solid and interact with them and have an image to see in my mind, not just this nebulous thing. And this made a huge impact in sorting things out, timelines and experiences and context, etc. So all that coming from the journal. So, and this is a dad, I didn't know what parts said this. It said, I don't like everything scattered all over the place and messy. It confuses me. And and go over timeline is freaking awesome, fantastic. I like him. These are my different parts we're talking. Wolf here, are you of good cheer? So I'm so excited, so excited. And we are not so dumb after all, doing so well. Thank you, Jesus. You have truly blessed me. And then the twins, Frick and Frack. And I started highlighting them so that they wouldn't get lost in the document. I could quickly look and see, okay, there's Frick and Frack. I says, I sensed two very large guards just behind me to the left and right. And they were saying, no one is allowed to hurt the kids. Got it? Because the wounded children were coming up and they protected them. And I said, yes, indeed, I got it. No harm. Only loving freedom with your permission. I was respecting what they do for the parts. You're protecting them. Brick and Frack are huge men, like professional bodybuilders. They keep their arms crossed. No one breaks the gates without their permission. They are soldiers and stand at parade rest. They snapped to attention instantly when triggered. No one hurts the kids. No one. And then Mary Jane popped up, which I realized later is the part that I thought of as pothead. That was the name I gave her, pothead. So they keep us all safe, meaning Frick and Frack. Not always, not when they sleep. Plus, they eat too much. They're so big. These are just different parts jumping in and out. One says, I've got a bit of headache now, going to rest. It shudders on my neck, too. Says, man, I don't want to do that timeline thing. That's too much work. And I still don't understand what this means. Angry script. Oh, I was making a note from my handwritten journals. A handwriting was very angry and scribbly. That's what it was. One of the press says, I think it'll be great. And I know you'll have these same thoughts going back through your head. I mean, even normal people do. Should I do this? Should I not? What if that happens? Oh, well, this could be a bad. We all have it. So here's Blue. Came back and said, well, after I lost my air, I wiggled my arms and legs all over. I was shaking. I'm under the blood, wiggling, really flailing around. A hand on my chest just pushing down. I hit the hand, wiggling, then pressure in my head, had headache in the real time as I'm remembering this. Still struggling. Then a bubble out of my lungs. My arms and legs are floating now, no longer fighting. It's all red, everything's red because I'm looking through the blood. And now I'm coming up. My head hit the back of my head on the way up. There's a finger in my mouth, air. My whole body convulses. Air, 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 I scream. It's dark with fire and chanting. The air is moving. There's eyes in the air. It came to my face and I blow it away. I believe that was the part spirit. The spirit of God, Jesus, pushed that demon away from me. I cringe. Air, air, air is so good. Sarge says get to work now. We are hungry. You know, I think I read this before and I'm sorry if I did, but at least you can see it in tandem with, the charts and the graphs and stuff like that. I thought for sure I had marked those as done or not done, but apparently not. Let me go here. Oh, and I did this one as well. Okay. See, I get mixed up because I reread these at 4 or 5, 6 different points in time and I forget where I'm at. But yeah, I think I did this one. Yes, I did. Okay. I'm so sorry, everyone. Oh, Dad's birthday session. I don't think I did this one. Okay. So April 12th of 24. Let me see how far along we are here. Dang. I always forget to look at the time I start as well. Anyway, let me just stop share and take a break for a second and feed my doggy. Be right back. So, okay, so I'm back. Doggy's fed, and I look through my journals. If I'm going over this a second time, I apologize. I'm pretty sure I've not. So here we go. Um, so for April 11th, this is a part called Wolf, and I entered this later. I didn't know the name of this part until now. So what happened here, I was laying down to go to sleep, and all of a sudden this image of this man popped into my head, and that's how it always starts with me, with a single image. So there's a man with a wolf skin coat on, literally with the fur, and it's, different pieces, and they're dangly. Am I sharing? I hope I am. Dang. I'm so new at this. I'm sorry, everybody. Share. Okay. There's a man with wolfskin coat and pants and a head covering. It was literally a skull, which I'm assuming is a wolf skull, that hangs over his forehead, so you could barely see his eyes. There's the skull, kind of like this. He has with him a very large dog slash wolf at his side. And I saw that image and I was like, wow, well, what's that? Okay, I guess that's a part talking to me. See, and this is what I heard. He trained me about dogs, large dogs. He also tortured and killed people and children with those dogs. So this is a part telling me a story and I'm writing it down. And then I believe this man is singing, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf?" He would sing this over and over. They were put in cages, and these big dogs would come into the room at us. They were hungry. They were not fed so as to be mean and vicious. They were always looking to eat, so, so loud. We were supposed to learn to be calm in our cages and then out of them. The dogs could smell our fear. So we're in these cages. And I sketched an image. Sorry, I'm not ready. There we go. So 410. Wolf, Angie, Dupe, and Star. Oh, here we go. For I separated them out. So we'll be going to this. Oh, here's Frick and Frack. Two really big dudes. That's not what I want to show you. It must be horses and dogs. No, yeah, maybe. No. Janet's like pumpkin training. I guess. Gosh darn it. 410. Oh, Wolf and Cage. Here it is. I drew this later. I'm a terrible artist. I'm sorry. But here we were. We had to sit away from the edges of the cage, and the dogs would just be mean and drooling. And yeah, I drew that on April 19th. And I would just say to myself, stay calm, stay calm. And this is where Wolf, the part, was born. And I'd say to myself, everything's just fine. It's just fine. Stay calm. So there I am in a cage, along with, I think there was about 12 or 13 cages in that room. I'd be very still in the center of the cage. I was also stiff and scared. You cannot cry. They know. They would come at you the instant you were afraid or cried, non-stop, barking and fangs biting. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? So one girl was torn to pieces and eaten alive. I saw this. She wasn't paying attention. I forgot once. I leaned against the cage. One of the six dogs leapt at me. Their snout fit through the holes. Its teeth just brushed by my shoulder. I never did that again. We could all see each other, so we knew what the dogs would go for. We had to be still and calm, calm above all. In time, we could move, just be calm. I remember once as an adult, when I was 35 or so, I was in a new neighborhood. I went out into the alley. A mean dog barking like crazy ran after me, and I'll make a note here. It was a German Shepherd. I'm just, I've always remembered that, but I want to make note of it. I stopped. I raised my hands and got very calm. And I remember it kind of tripped me out because I'm just standing there. I don't know if y'all, oh, you can't really see this, but I'll come back. So I'm standing and I went like this and I got really calm. I stopped dead about it stopped dead about 2 feet away, just stopped. And it was coming at me. It was gonna come get me. I knew it. And that's what I just raised my hands and I just got very calm looking at it. And I should have been terrified. And I remember thinking consciously, I can't believe it turned and walked off. I remember being surprised at what I did, and yet also knowing that I did it perfectly. Amazing. It was innate in me from that training. So even that part came out and handled the emergency situation just instantly. And then when the dog went away and I was safe, I switched back to my conscious self being blown away. I was like, I should be torn up or having a dog mauling me or whatever it was going to do, but it didn't. My part saved me. And so anyway, I don't mean to be yelling, but it was mind blowing to me when I had this memory, obviously of the part, and then I remembered at 35, the part was showing me, look, I came out and handled business, is what she's telling me. So we'll go back to as a child. In time, the cage doors were left open. So now we're sitting in the cage and the door's open. The dogs, each in turn, came face to face with us. You get this, the drool and the smelly breath and all that. You must be calm. Any fear, and they tore you apart. And that happened to a girl. Another girl was torn apart in the cage. Angie, Mary, and I all did okay. Those are my two sisters. We could look at each other. We talked with our eyes and faces. We had to be perfectly still always and calm. You had to just be calm, like hunters have to be. Then the cages were gone, and we had to sit while the dogs crawled around us. Don't move, be calm. And it's like Carrie Elahe explained in one of her videos on Emma's podcast, the Imagination podcast, how with her I think it was about butchery and cutting, but first they started them off with detangling, I think, a ball of yarn or something like that. And then they had to do it with, I think, a hood on. And then they had to do it in the dark. And then they had to do it in a ritual. So they take you, it's Pavlovian training, little step by little step by little step. And I think because I had watched Carrie Elahe's video and my parts were, this one obviously wasn't conscious at the time, but as I'm writing the journal and reading it, going, oh, look at this step by step process that they trained me. So that's what they do. So Wolf was born. I was 3. Wolfie. Wolf kept me calm and quiet. Mind blowing. And I later realized, let me see if I can find Wolf on here. I know I can. I don't know if it's this particular one, but she, wait, yeah, there's training camp. I found it. This huge complex that we were at. It's not, it was called School Sisters of Notre Dame at the time, but now it was bought over by Concordia University in Milwaukee. I mean, look at it. It's massive. This is when it was under construction, and there's an area view. And this is where a lot of our training took place in this little building that looks like a G, like Masonic G. And a lot of stuff happened here. This is the Lake Michigan and the lake shore. But a lot of stuff, most of our training occurred through here. And this is where very wealthy children of a wealthy elite, it was like a girls' school. They would have their private schooling, and then us poor schleps were out here in the back along the lake doing our training. And it's like we were being trained to be their minions. Oh, I don't have Wolf on here at this time yet. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, we do. Here we go. Here was Wolf. Here's the image I selected with her in Google Image. And this is what I realized later my real age was 7. But at the time of writing that journal, I thought I was 3. And maybe that was my mentality at the time. But physically, I was 7 years old. And there's me. Look like a happy little camper, don't I? Forcing a smile. I hated my picture taken, hated it. But there's Wolf in a cage. So that's how she became more solid and real to me. I hadn't put her sketched in here by then. So, I said mind blowing because, my conscious mind was like, are you kidding me? This really occurred to me. You got to wrap your head around it. I said also, if we peed our pants, the dogs went crazy. Had to hold it in all through the training. After a while, we got to pee in a cup. We got a cup to pee in. But to keep the dogs quiet, you could drink it. So if you had to pee, stay calm, kind of get up, pee in the cup, and then drink the pee because you're fucking thirsty. Excuse my language. You're thirsty, you're starving. Anyway, I learned to drink it. So did Angie and Mary. It was to leave no trace, is what they told us, to be a hunter. Also to not be thirsty, to survive. And years before, my husband and I used to watch a lot of survival videos, Les Stroud and, Survivor Man and all that. And what was it, Bear Grylls? He talked about in certain situations, yeah, you may have to drink your urine. So awesome. This is what we were being taught to be hunters. So now, and so I'm thinking about having to drink this urine because Wolf is telling me this. And then later in life, Willow is my part that is Mrs. I'm not going to tell you my last name, but her name is now Willow. So this is the wife to my husband. I said later in life, I used urine therapy to cure my allergies. I took right to it. This past year, I learned it was a satanic thing, but I had stopped that years ago. I did it for about 2 years to get rid of the allergies. I also recall being at a neighbor's house, and this experience made me remember this as a child. So one part is triggering memories of other parts later in life, earlier in life, later in life, earlier in life. So this, I'm like in my 40s here. And when I was doing this, I'm remembering an experience as a child. I recall being at a neighbor's house with my friend. I had dinner with them. Afterwards, I got welts all over my body. They were enormous. They were huge. They were like, I don't know, a 1/4 inch tall and, 4 or 5 inches across. They were huge. The grandma there put me in a tub and had me drink a ton of water. Then she said for me to make water in the tub. They were Eastern European and she couldn't speak good English. make water and would point at the water. I didn't really get it, but I played in the tub, it was making the itch part, be better. When I had to pee, because she kept making me drink glasses of water, she made me do it in the bath and keep playing. That's why she was giving me tons of water so that I don't have to pee, so that I would pee in the bath water. After I did that, the welts slowly went away. I think it took about 1 hour. They were of Eastern European descent. The grandma barely spoke English, but I went home with no welts. And their name, those were the Jacobiacs. Or Jacobiacs? It was Jacobiacs. They were our neighbors and friends. They were Eastern European. So I just wanted to show y'all how a part will present itself. For me, it's always just an image, just a single image. And sometimes it's very startling. Sometimes it's not. I'm just looking at it going, what am I looking at? And as I'm looking at it, I'll start to hear a story. And it's my voice talking to me, but it's the parts telling me their story using my voice. And and actually what I find fascinating, Blue is 3 weeks old. How did she even have words for anything? So she had access to my vocabulary and parts of my knowledge. And then the part will tell me their story and I'll record it. And I'll go back and reread it and they might fill in details. And, after you chew on that for a while, or even at the time, and I go, oh, is that why I did that as an adult? And so I'd be thinking about the thing I was doing as an adult, and I'll go, oh, well, I remember when I was younger and that happened. So one part is for me, it moves me through time, experiences as an adult, experiences as a child. It might even give me experiences and interactions with other parts, which you'll see later on in the journals. But I can look back in my life now and go, that's why I did that. That's how I could avoid that stupid dog that was attacking me not get mauled. And it also gave me the cognition, the understanding as I was talking to John later in time than this was these parts can jump in emergency situations and save me. And that was just one part. Imagine at the time, I think I was talking to John, I had like, I don't know, 80 or 100 parts or something. And I said, well, I get to be Superwoman. I don't want to integrate these parts. I want them all to be there, conscious and active and alive and co-conscious with me. And when an emergency situation comes along, I give them full permission to take over and save my life or save the life of a friend or a family member. Totally take over because you know what you're doing. And I've given them that permission. And I will be conscious along with them, but I'm going to step back, let them handle the scenario, but be aware of it. I don't want to get in their way. And I said to John, I said, well, then I get to be Superwoman. Look at all these abilities I'm going to have. So that was kind of exciting, and it helped me to embrace the idea of just the massive quantity of parts. I mean, when I first started, I was like, I'm not a multiple person. I don't have multiple personalities. What are you talking about? And then that moved into, I watched a show at one of Emma's interviews, his first ones, and I was like, well, okay, I guess that's reasonable and possible. And so now that it's possible, parts are presenting themselves and they're becoming real, and I'm giving them concrete images and what I call giving them existence, in my mind. They're concrete, they're real. I'm recording their experiences and I'm coming to this understanding, well, wow, they've got some great capabilities, and I'm becoming more acceptance of it. I'll admit at first I'm thinking, well, okay, 20 or 30 parts that, I could live with that. And at the time I think I'd 10 or 15. But then as I approached 30 and went to 40 or 50, the parts, oh my God, I must really be out of my mind. I've got all these parts. And like I said, I finally just said, you know what, the number can't matter. And it wasn't, I think John said, the number can't matter. What matters is embracing the totality of who you are. Do you really want to know your whole entire life, your whole being, all of you? And I said, yes. He said, then the number can't matter. And it can't. Because as long as you say, well, okay, 50 and I'm done, then what you're saying to the other parts that are, 51, 52 and up, I don't want to acknowledge you. I'm not going to acknowledge you. And by telling those parts, well, no, I'm not going to give you existence or reality, then the parts that have already exposed themselves to you and have some kind of reality with you are going to go, well, if you're going to deny them, well, then what makes me want to trust you? Yeah, I told you X, Y, and Z, but I haven't told you A to Q yet, and I'm not gonna because you're not gonna deal with them, then why should I trust you? So I guess what I want to convey is you've got to just embrace them, embrace it. And it sucks remembering it, and you will cry and you will have anxiety. And that's what you've got TED for, or your bed. Beat the snot out of bed, release the anxiety, get the adrenaline out of your body so the part can calm down, reveal more to you, and don't put a limit on a number. Don't do it. You will sabotage yourself. You have to embrace all of it. And as my husband would say, the veteran, embrace the suck. And as you embrace the suck and embrace your parts, and it's not that the parts suck, it's their experience that sucked, but they came along and saved you. They made it through. They took the pain, they took the terror, they took the manipulation, the mind fuck, the torture, all of it. They took it for you. And this is how I think of it. The least I can do now is as they give me their memories, I can take the pain of it now. I'm going to take it from them and for them. And in doing that, they trust me and they become conscious with me and they love me. I'm their mother, their sister, their brother, it's if they could go through that then, which, how long did a torture last? A weekend, a day, a week? How much pain? And I only have to feel it for 3 hours? Yeah, I can do that for you. I can do it. I will take it. I will cry for an hour. I will hold you and cuddle you for another hour. I will go work on TED and scream for you. I'll do all of it for you because I want to know 100% of myself. I want to know. I'm sorry, I'm looking down because of the glare, and I apologize. I haven't figured out the lighting insanity yet, but embrace the suck, I guess is what I'm getting at. It sucks, yeah, but whatever I'm doing is working. I've got 182 parts that came in 1 year. It's been I want to say a turbulent year, but not turbulent. It's been a roller coaster. And yeah, there's been days when I've been a basket case, days when I've lost my car at the supermarket. There's been, you know, just stuff. Let me adjust this. I want to look at you and not down. No, and that's worse. Jeez Louise. Maybe I need to lower the camera. Anyhow, tell them you'll take it for them. If you've got to be uncomfortable for a day or two or three or a week, so that they can share with you what they suffered for a month, and all you have is a headache or a sore arm or I can lately I've been having these glands flaring up every time I'm hungry. My glands just, I'll take it. I'll take it. I want to be their warrior. I will take it from them. Let them know I love them enough. I'll take it now for them because they lived it. It's the least I can do for them. So, anyhow, I got goosebumps all over it. I'll bring this to a close. So, I hope that helps you guys with stuff. Again, if you'd like copies of the graphs and charts I have, I made master copies. I've put the formulas in. I've given instructions on each page. I'm very happy to just send it to you through email, through WeTransfer. And and if you have questions or whatever, feel free to email me. It's there. So I love you all, and I hope these things are helpful. I hope you, I don't hope, I know you're going to make it through because you're a badass. Your parts are badasses, and you can now be a badass for them. You can take it, embrace the suck. Okay? Have a great week. Bye.